The 1994 FIFA World Cup was the 15th FIFA World Cup, the World Championship for men's national soccer teams. It was hosted by the United States and took place from June 17 to July 17, 1994, at 9 venues across the country. The United States was chosen as the host by FIFA on July 4, 1988. 1. Despite soccer's relative lack of popularity in the host nation, the tournament was the most financially successful, 3, in World Cup history. It broke tournament records with overall attendance of 3,587,538 and an average of 68,991 per game, for marks that stood unsurpassed as of 2022. 5. Despite the expansion of the competition from 24 to 32 teams starting with the 1998 World Cup. The games were played in 9 cities across the contiguous United States. 20. All stadiums had a capacity of at least 53,000, and their usual tenants were professional or college American football teams. 21. Other considered venues in other major cities across the United States such as Atlanta, Denver, Kansas City, Las Vegas, Miami, Minneapolis, New Orleans, Philadelphia, Seattle, and Tampa were not used, as well as venues in smaller towns such as Annapolis, Maryland, Columbus, Ohio, Corvallis, Oregon, and New Haven, Connecticut. 22. Several venues, including Joe Robbie Stadium in Miami and Candlestick Park in San Francisco, were rejected because of conflicts with Major League Baseball, so Stanford Stadium, 30 miles. 48 kilometers southeast of San Francisco, was used. 23, 24, and the Citrus Bowl in Orlando was picked over Miami's 2. Submitted. The Orange Bowl, the other Miami venue, required major renovations to meet tournament standards. 25. The venue used most was the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, with 8 games, among them one round of 16 game, a semi-final, the third-place game, and the final. Giants Stadium near New York hosted 7 games including a semi-final. Boston, Foxborough, San Francisco, Stanford, and Dallas hosted 6 games each, and Chicago, Washington, and Orlando each hosted 5 games. The least used was the Pontiac Silverdome near Detroit, the first indoor stadium used in a World Cup, with 4 group stage games. The Pontiac Silverdome was also the only venue of the 9 used that did not host any knockout round games. Because of the large area of the continental United States, the game locations were often far apart. Some teams in Groups A and B had to travel from Los Angeles or San Francisco all the way to Detroit and back again, covering 2,300 miles, 3,700 kilometers, and 4 time zones. The teams in Groups C and D only played in Foxborough, Boston, Chicago, and Dallas. A trip from Boston to Dallas is 2,000 miles, 3,200 kilometers, but only covers 2 time zones. Chicago is in the same time zone as Dallas but is still 1,000 miles, 1,600 kilometers, away from both Dallas and Boston. The teams in Groups E and F had it a bit easier. They played exclusively in New York, East Rutherford, Washington, and Orlando, which, while far apart, were at least all in the same time zone. A few teams, such as Cameroon and Colombia, did not have to travel to cities across the country to play games. The variety of climate in different cities all over the United States also sometimes made playing conditions challenging. Aside from the oceanic coolness of Boston, Foxborough, the Mediterranean climate of San Francisco, Stanford, and occasionally the coolness of Chicago, as they had been in Mexico in 1970 and 1986, most matches were played in hot and/or humid conditions, thanks to nearly all of the games being scheduled to be played during the day instead of at night in order to suit a time difference compromise for television in Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. This had always been done every time a World Cup was held in the Americas. Although playing in the mostly dry heat and smoggy conditions of Los Angeles, Pasadena, and the mixture of heat and humidity of Washington and New York sometimes proved to be difficult, the cities with the most consistently oppressive conditions were Orlando and Dallas in the south. Because of the combination of heat and extreme humidity. 26. The Floridian tropical climate of Orlando meant all games there were played in temperatures of 95 degrees Fahrenheit 35 degrees Celsius or above with dew points above 70 or more. the temperature there during the group stage game between Mexico and Ireland was 105 degrees Fahrenheit 41 degrees Celsius. Due to the midday start times, 27, Dallas was not much different. In the humid heat of a Texas summer, temperatures exceeded 100 degrees Fahrenheit 38 degrees Celsius during midday. When games there were staged in the open-type Cotton Bowl meant that conditions were just as oppressive there as they were in Orlando. 28. Detroit also proved to be difficult. The Pontiac Silverdome did not have a working cooling system, and because it was an air-supported stadium, the air could not escape through circulation. So temperatures inside the stadium would climb past 90 degrees Fahrenheit 32 degrees Celsius with 40% humidity. United States midfielder Thomas Dooley described the Silverdome as the worst place I have ever played at. 29. Of these 9 stadiums, all but one have since been either demolished and replaced by other stadiums, or have been moderately or heavily modified. The Pontiac Silverdome, Giants Stadium, and Foxborough Stadium have been demolished, and RFK Stadium is no longer in use and is slated for demolition by 2023. 30. Stanford Stadium, the Cotton Bowl, the Citrus Bowl, Camping World Stadium, and Soldier Field have all been moderately or heavily modified. The Rose Bowl is the only largely unmodified stadium that was used